Raiders fan comes by. Raiders fan, get yourself some pizza. He's like giving pizza away to Raiders fan. It's like, oh man. That guy was a hoot.
Where are people?
Huh?
Where are people?
I don't know.
You still up at the?
I know there are people actually walking in right this moment, because
Nice.
this is Louisville, why
There we go.
would you show up?
What's that?
I wasn't tracking. I thought you were Chad because I was.
Oh,
yeah. Faulty radar. They were asking if he's still up in Jasper, but he was outside. You were here. Hi there. Hello.
Hope you're hungry.
So limit yourself to no more than 2 pizzas.
Yeah, 2 pizzas each.
There were 60-something people signed up, I guess.
70 total, supposedly 40 in person.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that usually about 2x high, or where's that called?
I don't know. That's a good question.
And it's probably.
They probably signed up and then they didn't realize it was like the week before Christmas. You're like, week before
I
Christmas.
think I just signed up last week.
Yeah, it's a tough week. I didn't even really think about it being the week before Christmas when I told you I'd do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll give it a couple more minutes.
Still gonna go drinking?
Yeah. That's part of the reason why he come out, right? Remember, considering we have so much pizza, I'm going to go ahead and actually eat pizza tonight.
Oh my gosh, who's this guy? It's been quite a while. Limit yourself to 2 pizzas each, please. It's all the usual.
There we go. Room for the meat. First 2 set rows.
How many people are online?
I haven't looked. All right. All right, 44, it's,
40. Divided by 10.
I mean, I'm sure Arissa will be here momentarily. Speak of the devil.
We're waiting for you.
Actually, I brought some food. Did find the main. I've got like the one like baggy of like GitHub stickers where it's like most of them are like just the Octocat logo.
Mhm.
But there's a few other ones. I couldn't find that one, so I don't know what I did with it.
Ah.
But I found. Let's see which one did I put in. No one put it in before I left. At least I better have all the exceptions. There it is. I knew it. I brought like most of them are like the AdaCat ones that are for like the like underrepresented groups in STEM, but some of them are a little bit more like numeric, like different AutoCAD characters.
Cool.
So I figured just if anybody would like so they programs to do.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get us started. So,
Pulled it out.
I got you.
hey,
And we're offline.
it's gonna be one of those nights, huh?
I got over it. Nope.
All right. Well, everyone, welcome. Sure enough, when I saw so many new people supposedly coming, I was ready to say who I was because you all know who I am. Or else I hope you. Well, I don't know. It's been a long time. I don't.
Wow, what's your name again?
So definitely, thanks for everyone coming out. Braving the pre-Christmas week. Could be worse because we could be back in the old location. That, especially back in the day, that was hard to get to during Christmas time. So, you all know my announcements. So we'll go over to Brick House. I always want to call it Brickyard. We'll go over. For those who want to join, we'll go over to Brick House afterwards. Hey, and then as far as upcoming events, January 14th. I want to say that's the first day. Yeah, 14th to the 17th is Code Mash. So it's up in Sandusky. So Riss, I'm assuming is talking about accessibility. It's kind of obvious. I'm going to do a workshop about message patterns and 2 other talks. I forgot what the other talks are. I've been busy working that workshop. I will somehow get that done. So with that, and as far as upcoming meetups, so next month, I forgot the gentleman's name who's coming, but we have someone coming in. He's going to be talking about communication. So how to, as I stumble on my words, how to communicate better within your teams. And then in February, about the exact topic, but basically AI, which will be part of Microsoft's what they call their season of AI, which apparently every quarter is a season of AI in Microsoft term. So with that, tonight we've got Dwayne. By request, I had some folks asking for some Maui content, and Dwayne actually has been doing this for quite some time. I mean, software development in general, but it's been doing Maui.
You can tell by the light. You've been doing it a long time.
Yeah. Luckily, I got blonde hair that hides it all. But I think you've been doing Maui since like the beginning of Maui.
Yeah, in Xamarin Forms since basically day one of Xamarin Forms.
Yeah. So, definitely, not much many better people we can get than Dwayne to come and talk about Maui. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dwayne.
Thanks, Chad. So, like Chad said, we're going to talk a little bit about Maui this evening and what we can do with that. My name's Dwayne Newman. Chad kind of did that. I won't go over all the rest of my stuff here, except for to say, and it'll make more sense when I get into this, that when I'm not behind the computer programming, I often can be found scuba diving. I teach scuba diving, lead trips scuba diving, and all that kind of stuff. And that'll make a little more sense when we get into my demo app here. So let's talk a little bit about .NET MAUI and what it is. It's pretty straightforward. They took some words, mashed them up to make MAUI, and those words were multi-platform app user interface. Actually, I think they had MAUI and they came up with something to fit it. But really it is just a abstract interface design for working across multiple platforms. There's native support by Microsoft for iOS, Android, WinUI, macOS, and then the Tizen team works with them with putting the Tizen support in for that as well. So, excuse me, the all those pieces work underneath this, and Maui allows you to make UIs and applications in general that run on all these platforms. And built on top of the .NET ecosystem, obviously you can use Visual Studio, VS Code to do all that stuff, do all your XAML for your UI development. You can do UI development outside of XAML, like just straight coded and some things like that. If you're a little bit of a masochist and like doing that to yourself, it is possible. But generally you're going to be doing XAML-based development in it. And some changes from Maui, if you've done Xamarin Forms work or something like that, is that it follows some of the newer paradigms. So there's a host builder. So if you're familiar with that from doing, web API work, and ASP.NET, things like that, you're going to find some familiar pieces there for app setup and also for managing and doing dependency injection, which is a built-in piece of it, not something you have to go get third-party pieces to work with. In fact, everything we talked about tonight is going to show what you can do just on the pieces that Microsoft puts out for it, not using a third party to get pieces in there, but just things that they provided out of the box. And if you've done Xamarin stuff, you'll see there's quite a bit that they've done to make it a much more straightforward out of the box experience. So Maui is just built on top of all the .NET pieces. And when we do Maui development, we want to be able to write app code and write our applications, and we want to ultimately end up running on all these platforms here, running on iOS, Android, Mac, Windows. And the way that this is done is all the layers in between that Microsoft's put together. Obviously, we had the .NET runtime running on top of each of these platforms, and that .NET runtime, has been made common to the advantages of the world of Core and .NET 5 and beyond, all the commonality there. But we're sitting on top of that. They're using the BCL to do all the pieces that it does in there, giving us all of our translations down to the platforms from what we want to write. And then on top of that, we have the actual platforms for each of the each of the actual systems. So we've got .NET for Android, facilitating all of the pieces that are needed for the Android platform, .NET for iOS, and Mac Catalyst, providing all the pieces when you run on Apple technology. And then obviously WinUI, which doesn't require much translation at all because that's already built in and sitting there, something we can already do. But WinUI layer there that's getting us onto Windows. And then Maui sits between all that and your app code, and really provides the core interaction that you're going to do for most of your work, right? So we don't have to do the stuff with these lower layers here, this sections here of the .NETs for each of the different platforms. We can write code for that, but we don't have to write code for that because the Maui platform layer takes care of all those pieces for us, allows us then to take and just focus on writing our app code and writing things that target the Maui platform API layer, and really focus on those pieces. So they've put quite a bit of stuff into Maui right out of the box, including tons of controls, all the standard stuff that you would want to be working with, right? We've got labels, buttons, etc. All the things that you have in a normal mobile application that you want to be able to use that are supported by platforms. And some things aren't actually native platform controls, but they're such common mobile development concepts and just app development concepts that they've taken and made those things, standard controls that you can work with. They've also taken a look at this and looked at the layouts and how you're going to work with doing, all your screen setup and everything. So we've got stacks, grids, and flex layouts all built in and available, and they can integrate and mix together. Excuse me. Then one of the other things they did was they gave us a shell system. So if you're doing Xamarin work before, Xamarin Forms work, they didn't really give you a whole lot for this. You had some navigation stuff, but not a lot of other pieces, and you had to do a lot of work yourself. And so what they've given us is the shell system, and we'll take a look at that. That gives us access to flyout menus, tabs, both top and bottom, and navigation system all wrapped up inside of it. Some other things they give us is right to left native support. So if you're doing multilingual targeting and everything, you can do that in here and actually handle right to left languages. And then another big piece that they've given us that wasn't there previously is semantic properties. So if you have to work with any kind of accessibility, which I encourage you to be doing in your applications, but if you are trying to target any kind of accessibility work, the semantic properties on there will let you do that. So it's going to give you the ability to describe what your controls are and what they do, so that screen readers can do more than just read, click here on a button or submit or whatever. It can actually tell you maybe what the purpose of the submit button is or other entry fields. And we'll take a look at that too. So when it comes to putting things together, like I said, it's really built for XAML and C# and MVVM patterns. Going to cover that stuff really lightly just because I don't know what everyone's familiarity is with all those concepts. So we'll try to hit that as we get started. But if you're doing any kind of WPF, UWP, or if you've done any other XAML-based like Xamarin Forms work, it'll be similar, familiar concepts to you. And like I said, you can write it in C#. There's an extension markup language for it. So it actually gives you like fluent ability to write your code out in a way that makes a little bit more sense instead of having to declare a bunch of variables and constantly setting properties on it. You can just kind of run a bunch of things together and make it a little bit easier to do that. And then they got styling support built into it. And one of the nice things is they have light and dark theme handling and the ability to switch between those all built into it for you. And also the ability to handle your other resources like colors and other styles, both statically and dynamically. So if you have things that need to change throughout the running of your application, it can. But in general, most of it's going to be set up statically. And then your themes and styles can be done either in XAML or CSS. So I prefer doing it in XAML. I like the way that it layers together better, but sometimes you get handed stuff from marketing or business and it's already done CSS for, say, the company website or things like that. And we can take those things and integrate them in. One place the CSS works really well is if you're trying to do flex layouts, because that's kind of hard to define in a non-CSS way. And so it's really easy to take that or a flex layout and put that together. And then you get other standard obvious stuff that you would want to have, state manager. So tracking, buttons and focuses and things like that so that things show up right. Font support. This is some of the big improvements. Fonts are really easy to put in and use. And then image support. So one big issue working with Xamarin Forms was dealing with SVGs or anything like that you wanted to do vector graphics on was a real pain, but there's built-in support inside Maui to take SVGs and it'll actually do the rasterizing for you and target the resolutions of the platforms that you want to work with. So a few of the other things that they've done to improve over working with forms and previous iterations is a single project design, which is what we're going to work with. If you've done any Xamarin Forms work, you know that every targeted platform had its own head project that you had to work with, and which meant a lot of resources and things that were duplicated, trying to keep stuff in track or using tools to do that. Well, Maui eliminates a lot of those needs and gives you the ability to have a single project, and it does all the compiling to the different targets for you and makes it easier to kind of mix your resources and stuff together. Gives you that central embedded spot for images, fonts, and everything else you want to do, plus splash screen support. and makes it easy to be able to work with your debugging, being able to choose what you're working with at runtime, at debug time, and also gives you some hints inside the UI we'll take a look at. Also nice, you get hot reload that typically works both for XAML and also hot reload for the code. So if you're making code changes and everything, it'll pull those in as well. And then they included a bunch of really useful controls that used to be plugins you had to get separately in the essentials. Basically all the main mobile components, inputs and services you would want to be able to have access to, they've made available to be able to pull in pretty easily. And there's good instructions on how to get the permissions set up for it and everything. So that's my talking, and the rest of this pretty much we're going to do some demo work here and take us through just how to do some of this and everything. So let me switch over to my code here. All right. So I've got a couple things going here. We're going to look at Studio. I've got a actual physical device over here. You can see I'm doing some things to it, and we're just using Visor to pull it up on screen so you guys can see it easier. But to start with, let's just kind of take a look at what you're going to do in Maui here. So got Studio running here, brand new, and I'm just going to do file new project. And if I come up here and I type in Maui, it's going to filter it down to the Maui projects. And we see we have a few of them. We have .NET MAUI app, and this is what we're going to end up using here. This is the single project solution for doing that. There's .NET Blazor, .NET MAUI Blazor hybrid app. So if you're doing Blazor work and you have Blazor resources and you want to build a mobile .NET MAUI based on mobiles, I gotta stop saying mobile, but if you want to build a MAUI app, which could be mobile or desktop, that's powered by a Blazor UI, you can use that. There's class libraries for working with that. And then a new one here that's similar to the other one there, except for how it does it. And then the .NET MAUI multi-project app. So if you are doing a transition from a Xamarin Forms project, this is a really good one to start with, because this will actually give you a head project for each target platform and allows you to bring things over easier. So if you're trying to do a migration, it gives you the same structure that you had in your existing setup, makes it easier to bring resources over, and then you can actually take that, and it's easier at that point than to collapse that back into one. After you kind of got them in a common space, you can start merging that back into one head project. But we're just going to do a .NET MAUI app, and we're just going to leave its default names. And .NET 8, I've got 8 on this machine here right now, and I didn't want to risk fate with putting 9 on it right before the talk. Okay, so let's take a look at a few things here. We're just going to start with the Maui program. This is our program CS, but for the Maui project. And like I said, if we take a look at this, you'll see this looks pretty familiar to us out there. We've got a app builder here that's being run for the Maui app, and it's going to create the builder. It's going to tell it that they want to use Maui app, and I don't know why I have squigglies here. It's something with my installed version. Everything runs, but Studio I run in preview doesn't like it. It configures the fonts, and so it's got the 2 fonts here. These are actually embedded in the project. You can take a look at that over here in the resources fonts. So there's the actual font files right over here. And it's just registering those for use with the application, and then just going to do a builder for it so that the app can actually run at that point. This is where we would do dependency injection if we're going to do that, and we'll see that when we look at some stuff in a minute. When it comes to styling, there's some default styles put in, and so if we come look at the styles XAML file here, we'll see a bunch of styles, and you'll notice this app theme binding. We have light and we have dark. So as I said, this has support for light and dark theming built into it. So this allows you to set the colors for both light and dark for each of these things. So you can come through, set all your styles up, and it gives you a default theme that has all the main styles for all the main controls in here. So there's quite a bit of stuff set in here. Has all the properties being set as you typically would, passing colors through, and you can see everywhere it does that. It's passing light and dark versions of the colors. Those colors are defined in the color XAML file right here. And it's pretty straightforward, simple. We have color value, all the way down here for each one. So primary dark, secondary dark. You can see all these different ones that's being used in the resources. So you'll notice here it has a note about Android. There are some additional places you guys set. So you've done Android work. You know that this exists out here, and this affects some colors that are outside the app because of the way things are done in there. So if we come up to platform, and you'll see we have all the platforms here. We've got Android, iOS, ties in macOS, and each one has platform specific files in there. You'll see that they all have the startup files. So the Mac Catalyst one here, iOS, so there's a app delegate and program for actually launching the program itself. Android, same thing. Come in here, there's the main application, the main activity, which is going to be our entry point in. And yeah, everything's not liking this here, but these all wire up. This is all the main stuff that you're going to use to get in the first place. But if we go look at our resources here under Android, we'll see there's a colors file that you can set the rest of those colors in there. So these platform folders are where if you needed to do something platform specific for APIs or other access like that, this is the area where you would do those pieces, and they would only show up. Anything you put in these by default only shows up inside that compiled project. So this is only going to show up when it compiles and targets Android and iOS, etc. So anything you need to do there that's going to be platform specific, you can do. And then when it comes to layout, we talked about shell. So if we look at the app XAML here, this is the main entry point for the MAUI application. If we look in the code behind for it, we'll see that it sets the main page to an app shell. This is basically hooking everything up. And so if we go look at app shell class here, which is a XAML file, we'll see some XAML here, not a whole lot, except for saying that it's going to be using the shell system and configuring some options for the shell system, and then supplying content for the shell system here. And it for the content says it's going to be main page. And we look at the main page XAML, we have that there. So let's just go ahead and run this. I'm targeting Windows right now, so this is going to build and run on my Windows machine. Let's take it a few seconds. All right, so you'll see the standard stuff here. They've got a little click me button, it's doing some counting and all that. But here we go. We have a application, not a lot to it. Just has the button on it and everything. But all these pieces are being represented through on it. And we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because we're going to take a look at another project for the rest of this. So I'll talk about the XAML here a little bit. I don't know how familiar one is. We'll look at it a little bit in the next one here. So I'm going to close this. Done with that. That's what you would get right off the bat when you start something up. So let me show you what we're going to do. I told you I've got a scuba business, and so move this over here so my head doesn't block it. And what we're going to be working on is basically a business card app that I built for my dive shop. And it's pretty simple. It's got some basic information here. It's got a fly out menu on it. It's got a contact page. You can dial, open up emails, or browse our site, find all of our social media on here. And then if we go to classes, this app is actually pulling from the internet, and it's pulling a list of class information from my website in a JSON file and showing us stuff about it. We can go in and see some details on those things. Ultimately, this will, if I click the learn more button, it's going to open a web page up straight to my site with more details on it, so you can schedule the class on it. And then I've got some tools here for doing some calculations that are useful for scuba divers to want to be able to do. So this is what we're going to be working kind of towards doing. And, you know, it's not a super complex app. It is pulling stuff from the internet. And like I said, it was something that really didn't take that long to do. It was fairly quick development, you know, a day and a half or so of putting things together. And a lot of that was deciding what I was going to put in some places and creating file formats and things like that. Okay. So just going to take a quick look here, see if there's any questions to answer in the chat here before I get onto this piece. Yeah, so Space Cowboy asked about VS Code and working with Maui. You can use both VS Code or VS for Maui. A lot of the Maui team is very VS Code happy. Dave Ortenow, the program manager, is usually running on a Mac, and there is no more Visual Studio for Mac, so he's usually developing in VS Code. They're working on, I don't think it's out yet, they're working on some better support inside of it through a extension. I don't do my day-to-day in VS Code with it, but you can. That's something they hit a lot. I'm more at home in Studio in Visual Studio proper for most stuff. So it just depends on what I'm doing, but that's usually where I'm sitting at. But VS Code is pretty capable for doing that as well. Okay, so take a quick look at this. This is kind of the starts for the app. We're going to go through the building some of these pieces out. I have some basic pieces I've already put in here. The one thing I want to point out here is in the XAML CS, we saw this is after the Maui program, like this is the piece that kind of launches things. And you can up here, if you look in your menu at the top, you can select different platforms. So inside the Maui app, you can tell it what platform you want to look at the code as. So if I select Android, it's going to act all the Android things. So the Windows define is false in this case. So all this code is commented out. But if I want to actually get IntelliSense and have things work right for the Windows platform, I can set that to Windows. And then you'll see that this is now active. And if I come down here, I actually have IntelliSense. This is part of the WinUI system APIs and everything and stuff that I'm working with here and doing things on. So you can actually get access to those pieces and then do stuff. And I've got it set here right now so that when I launch this on a Windows machine, by default, it comes up in the form factor of like a mobile device, which makes it really nice and easy for quick turnaround on doing some rapid development where you don't want to be on the platform the whole time, and just kind of gives you the form factor to give you the right feel for what you're doing on it. So just a nice little hint for you there. As far as the layout on this, there's a app shell. I've done, really not much modifications except for I've changed the page that loads up. We're going to look at it in a second here. I've created a class called class information that holds the information about our classes. So that list that we saw of the classes, this is holding that information, just a standard POCO. The classes page itself here, this is the main view. And so for this step, this is all statically done. So quick synopsis on XAML. XAML is declarative way of doing software development and coding. It's used for UI, but this is actually all code. And so if you want to look at this, what declare means is we're telling the compiler what we want, but not exactly 100% how to get what we want. So we're just telling it we want a content page instantiated. So it's actually going to create a content page class or instance here. It's going to set some properties. This is a hint to tell it the name of the class that should be used for it so that we can do the code behind pieces on it as well. Then we're telling it that we want it, the main content object on here, which I believe is control on this, to be a grid. And then we're telling it that some settings for it that we want it to apply, and it's going to do all this stuff. It's going to create these things, apply these values. It's kind of like the merging of HTML and code when it comes to UI development. And we're telling it we have we want a collection view to be put inside the grid and settings and properties in the first grid row here. Item template is just a way of, since the collection view contains a collection of things, given its name, this is how we tell it what we want each thing inside the collection to look like. So we have a data template. We're telling it that we're based off the class information class. So it knows that inside of here, we're going to have properties like image here. This is coming from, this is the actual property inside of our class. We get IntelliSense on it because we've told it that the data type is that. We're telling it this is what you're going to have. That you could give it something different at this case, and if it had the right properties, it would, still put things in here. But this is all going to be runtime stuff. So if you don't have an image on the object that goes in there, it's not going to know what to bind to or be able to bind to it. But we're telling it that we want to put an image in here, coming from the image, a label with the name, and excuse me, a label with the price on it here, and we're doing some formatting on it, and we're setting just a bunch of ancillary properties here to get the layout and positioning the way that we want it, because we're in a grid and we're setting the grids and rows, the columns and rows on it. It's going to put everything in the right spots for us. And then what we've done here is we've come down and we're set the collections item source. Normally you would set this, and we'll look at it in a minute. You would set it up here as a property up here, and you would target a property or some other thing to give a source to it. But here we're just declaring everything in line. I'm telling it that I want an array of class information, and then I'm just manually putting in the stuff. So this is just, we're just putting it right in line in the code. This is all going to be in it. So this is what's going to show up on the screen are these 4 items when we get in there and look at it. So if I run this, it's going to do a quick build. There we go. And like I said, this is run on Windows. Something we'll look at here. I'm going to close all these. This is interesting. So I'm just going to close all my code files. And you'll see over here, this is a preview. As I scroll on here, it's following as well. So this is just a preview of what's going on. And nice thing is, it tells us things about it, so we can see like the render size and stuff here. It's telling us what size that's rendering as, other pieces about it, colors, other properties that are, useful to know. But another nice thing is that if I come in here and I want to make some changes to this, if I click on it, it knows where this comes from. So it's actually taking me to the code file, to this point in here, and I can start doing some other things. So like this collection view, this is the entire thing. I can come up here, and because of the hot reload, I can make live changes. And if I go back, you can see that that horrendous red has been applied to it immediately right in there. And it just does it right away because of the hot reload on it. So it's pushing those XAML updates right into it. And you get both a preview and also the actual live app gets the change on it there. All right, so that's basic. Not a whole lot happening yet on it here, right? But we've got our content. We've shoved it up on the screen here. We've defined some things about it. And maybe now we want to do something a little more interesting. So You don't want to watch me type a ton, I'm sure. So we're going to come in here. I've got the code here lined up in changes. Let's see. Yes, I want to reload. So I've made some changes to the app. I've added a few things in. Among those changes, I've added a service section here. And in the service, I have this class service, which is a way to get the class data that I need to load it from a file. It says to do load from file, but we're actually doing that. We'll take a look at how this loads from the file in a second. I mean, it's pretty simple, straightforward, and don't worry about trying to remember what this is. It does it. It shows it for you. So if we look at where this is coming from, we're telling it we want to load classes JSON, and it's from the app package file system. So if we go to resources, raw, we have this class as JSON. If we take a look at it, here we go. We see all the JSON defining all these properties for those same 4 classes. And if we go back and we go this, we see this here, and you're thinking, well, how do I know that? Well, when you create a new project, it gives you this about assets file, which is really nice because it kind of tells you what you use this directory for. And then it says, hey, here you go. If you want to get something out of here, here's how to do it. Here's how to load this particular file right now, this about assets file. So here is the code that would actually load this file back up. So very easy to do. We're just pulling that JSON file in. So we're going to get this from JSON, and then we're just deserializing it into a list of class information, which is what's actually coming out of this method. So we also have a navigation service here that uses the shell system to do some navigation. And you could do this without doing it because, you can get to the shell and do stuff, but I like using the service, especially in this case, because we want to be able to open a particular class, and this makes it easy to set the properties to that. And we'll take a closer look at that in just a second, how that passes through. I have done some view model work. So we have this base view model that just declares itself as an observable. This is part of the community toolkit. So this is something that you get from Microsoft for it. It's not in Maui directly. You have to add the community toolkit package. I can show you that real quick. So the community toolkit, we've got the toolkit of Maui and EVVM, and then I think the controls were already, those were already there. So we just added these pieces here to get the toolkit, and that gives us some built-in MVVM support, like the observable object. Lets us do things like put a title in here, and this observable property is going to, as you can see here, it's going to take it from this one field and actually turn it into an actual property with a setter, which does all the proper stuff to let things know that it's changed when it has changed. So it does the property notification and all that, which is important in the MVVM world and in XAML to be able to actually know that your underlying data has changed. And so our classes view model drives the data for our classes screen. It just asks for a class service and a navigation service come in. The class service comes in, it sets these up, and then we have this load classes async method, which we'll show how we call that in a minute, which is just going to call the service, get the classes, put it in our collection, and go from there. So if we're going to use a service, we need to actually have it registered. And if we go to the Maui program, talked about this earlier, that this is where we're going to register things. So if you use the toolkit, you also have to put this piece in so it registers some pieces for it. But when you come down here, we've added in a registration for the class service and the shell navigation service back to the interfaces. And also we've added registrations for the view model and page for each of the view models and pages so that it knows how to find those when we ask for them, because we're going to ask for them by string. You'll see this in just a moment. Okay. So our classes page, this looks real similar to how it did a minute ago. Ignore the commented code. We've got the same pieces here. Still, the names and images All this stuff's the same. Biggest piece is we're not declaring the data down here. We've set item source to classes, and bindings how we tell it that we want to get data from whatever our source content is. And in this case, this is going to be the source for the page is classes. Now to get that, we have to set this. This is the one thing we have to set in here on a page, and do that code behind. We're going to do that in the constructor. We are going to tell it that we want to get a classes view model in here, and because of our dependency injection, it's going to know how to get that. And we're going to set our binding context to the classes view model. And then we're also going to come down here to the navigated to. This is an event that's going to be called whenever the page is navigated to, for obvious reasons. So when we open it up and show it, this is going to get called. And when that happens, we want to come in here and we want to verify that our binding context is the right thing. And if it is, we want to call the load classes async, which is going to load that content up and put it on the screen. So this allows it to happen in an async way as well. So as you come in here, if this is something that takes a minute, like loading from the internet or something like that, it'll load it up after the screen's finished being shown, and then the content will be displayed. So let's take a look at this. Give it a second to build. Here we go. All right, so we have our scuba classes here, and they're all set up. We see that this is all loading. Same, looks a lot like it did before, but it's actually doing something now. Now, what we want to do is when we click on this, clicking nothing's happening. When we click on it, we want to actually be able to load this content up. So if we close this down and come back to our classes page, the XAML here, we can do that through what's called a gesture recognizer. So the grid is the piece that's containing all of the content for each item. And so we want anywhere you tap, not the picture, not the text, but anywhere, the picture or the text, or any of that space, we want to have it do an action. So we're going to set the gesture recognizers, we're going to tell it we want to add a tap recognizer. And you notice I talked about the semantic properties before. This is where we actually get into some of this. So on this particular case, we're setting semantic properties. We're setting description. So when a screen reader on your phone pulls up and sees this, it's going to be able to say, know that you can tap on this, and it's going to be able to tell you, hey, tap to open details about this course. And you know that there's going to be a way to select more information. So it gives some useful things to it. On top of that, we're telling it what to do. So we've told it we want to call a command. Commands are how all things are done in EVM, any kind of action. And we're telling it something here. Yeah, there we go. Wrong way. There we go. Hitting the wrong button. We're telling it where this command is. Now, remember, this data template, this is being done for each item in our collection of things. And our collection is just a regular POCO of class information, this type. So it doesn't actually have any commands on it, but we do have a view class details command on our classes view model. And the relative source here is a way to do binding on something other than what we're on. So in this case, we're using relative source, and we're looking for an ancestor that's a classes view model. So it's going to look at the visual tree where this thing is, and it's going to know I'm part of a class information object in here. And now go up the tree, we're looking for a classes view model. It's going to go up to the things that are outside of it. So in this case, the grid, it's going to look up to the grid, and it's going to go up to the collection view. And when it gets to collection view, it's going to be able to see that, oh, the source for the collection view, not for the contents of it, but for the collection view itself, is a classes view model. And once it finds that, it's going to be able to call the view class details command on that. And then the other thing we're setting here is command parameter. And This is data that's going to go along with the command as a parameter into the command. We'll see this in a second. And just a simple word binding says, just give it whatever I'm being given data from, give it the whole thing. So in this case, it's going to be the entire class information object that we're going to work with. So if I come over here and navigate to that, it's going to take us to our view details command. And if we just make this a little easier to look at, all it's doing is it's awaiting on this other method here, and it's passing in the class information is being brought into this, and it's passing it off to this. And so down here we see it's going to call the navigation service navigate to class details async, and it's passing that class in. And so let's look at what this does. And the reason I like to wrap this up is because in this case, it's a little complex to pass information, but it's not impossible. You can pass actually all sorts of things. And you can see here, the go to async takes a name. This is the thing we're going to. So we're telling it we want to go to a class page. And then we're telling it that for the parameters for this, as a dictionary of parameters, we want to be able to pass it a key and an object. So the key is a string of how to get the data out of this on the other page. And then the object can be anything. And, it could be a string. It could be, in this case, an actual class information class that has everything we already know. We've already loaded this up. We don't want to load any more than we have to. So it just pass the whole thing over to it. And so it's going to open this class page and it's going to provide it with this. So on the navigation there, we'll be able to pull that in. And if we look at the navigation right here, look at the navigation on this. Sorry, it's a view model. We look at the navigation on this, that when it comes in, it's got this observable property on here called class information class. And because it matches the name of the property we've given it, there's some magic that happens there, and it will automatically set that for us when it constructs this for us. There's some other ways you can do it too. There's some on navigating methods that you can actually pull the value out and everything, but this is a little more streamlined way to do it. So it's going to automatically get this set on there when it loads that up. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Run it. There we go. I'm going to switch after this and run it on my mobile device just so you can see it running over there. Notice occasionally in debug mode that the Windows machine doesn't, the app doesn't start all the way. I only see it on Windows machine and in debug mode, unless I just broke something. Where did I break? So all I've done is uncomment this. You know what? We're just going to do a little reset here. Let it run. Oh, we're not loading the data yet. It was working perfectly fine. Okay, so on the classes page, I must have not had all of that undone. There we go. Okay. So I clicked on it and we see we get an exception because it doesn't know how to get to this class page class. We need to do a little bit more work. So when we did this navigation here, you can see it's going to, and it's a name of, it's just a string. So we're telling it, hey, we want to go to the class page path, wherever that is, whatever that resolves to, and pass it this stuff. Well, turns out it doesn't know what that is yet. We actually need to tell it about routing. It's called a route. And so if we go to the app show, you'll see we have our classes page, and we've told it that the route for classes page is classes page, but we need to tell it the routes for other things. And the kind of typical way to do this is to do it close to the source. So we typically will do it here in the app shell, but you can really do this anywhere that you can get to the routing. And that's where we're going to come in and we're going to register a route class page. So it's the name of, so this is the string, and then the type of, so we're going to tell it the type that we want to get to is going to be the class page. So now if we run this, and we'll give it a second. There we go. Deployed. The demo gods are striking. It's interesting. Literally just worked. I'm gonna try it one more time here. There we go. All right. So we come in here and we see we have all these. If I click on one of these, now we see it's actually loading the page up. And like I said, it set all these properties for us automatically and put them right in there. So we're able to get those pieces right in. Now, if I click on the Learn More button, it's actually going to open a browser. I've got a selector here, so I'm going to tell it Chrome. It's going to open a browser up with the navigation to that. So just like it was on the phone, but it's pulling it up here. And all we did for that is in the view model of the class view model, we have a Learn More command, which fires off this. And it's just using the browser, which is an iBrowser. This is built into MAUI. Easy way to get to doing stuff. So like the navigation service and the shell stuff is part of it as well. But like I said, I wrapped that up because there's some complexity to what you do there, and it's easier to manage that in one spot. But this is just very simple. It's going to open a link that's passed to it, a URI. So in this case, we're just passing the Learn More link that's part of the command to it, coming from the more info from the class. Okay. So I'm going to close all these tabs just to get a little clutter out and take a look at a few more changes here. Let's take a look at the shell on it. So the app shell right now, what we have is just this simple one, right? So when we run this, and I said I was going to run this on the device. So let's go ahead and do that just so I can prove we're doing things here. This first run is going to take a moment for it to launch to it. There we go. Look at our output here. It's going to be doing some building, which takes a moment, and then deploying. The first deploy is a little bit more, especially from your development. It's got to push some of the runtime pieces and stuff. It gets a little bit better after that. So you can see we have a splash screen on here that's being ran from it. And then I'm just going to pick my phone up. See, we have the data on here. And if I go into the page here, we'll see that piece. And so we want to do something more. We got our back button up here in the corner. You can see there when I tap on it, part of the layout there, right there. So we can come back and see that. But we want to do a little bit more with it. So I'm going to stop this for a second. And we want to look at what we can do. So we're going to comment this. And then comment the whole thing. And comment this. So we have a tab bar here. And this is going to give us a tab bar that gives us access to a couple other pages we have. I've added a contact page and a home page to this. So, and they're going to show up in this order. So I'll go ahead and run that. Give it just a second. There we go. We're launching. And now you can see at the bottom here, Down here at the bottom, we have our home, contact, and classes. And so if I click on those, I'm getting all those screens on there. So there's a few more things to take a look at on this, but we're going to make one more change to it first. And that is, we're going to comment this out. And we're going to turn it into a flyout. And we're going to do two things to make this work. One, we create the flyout items here. So we'll have a flyout menu to come from the side, but we also have to tell this that we want to actually have a flyout behavior of flyout. You can also make it locked. So say you're on a tablet or something, you just wanted that flyout menu out all the time, or even on a desktop, you could do that. So that's something you could potentially maybe set with a behavior on there to have it the way you want. But let's run this. Give it a second to launch. And now instead of the menu, the tabs at the bottom, we have our hamburger up here. If we hit that, we've got a few things. You can see some things we've done here. We've got our logo up here in the corner. And that's done with this flyout header that we've set on it, saying that for the header of it, we want a grid with a little bit of padding on it, and we want to put our logo right there and there. We want to make sure the aspect of it is that it fits inside the space that we have available. And then we have our actual menu items out here. So you notice this didn't show up obviously with the other two because we were not in flyout mode, so there is no flyout header. But now we have our other pieces down here, and we click about, we get that classes, we get that page there as well. So now look at another thing here. If you take a look at the contact us page, you'll notice that we've got a lot of icons on here and everything. It's not just the text and everything. We have some icons to go with it. And so let's take a look at how we did that icon registration in here. This was really easy. And we just did a couple things. First, in the fonts folder, I went and got Font Awesome, the Font Awesome fonts, the brands and their regular and solid free ones. You could do this with any font library out there. If you wanted to use the material design icons or any other icon set you have that has a font system, put the font in fonts, and then we come down here to the Maui program, and we just come in here, we add the fonts to it. This first piece here is the name of the font file. So you'll see that these match up to the font files. And the second one here is how you want to refer to it in your code. So in your XAML, when you're telling it you want a font, you're going to tell it FA brands, FA regular, or FA solid to be able to tell it that you need that's what you need. And if we go to the contact page and take a look at this, minimize that for now. Got some styling to make it a little bit easier. Take a look at like the phone number here. We have a button, and we're using a image source on it, and we have this font image source, which is part of the Maui pieces. And this says, I want to take a character glyph from a font, and I want to turn it into an image, and then use it for the source of an image item. So the button has the ability to have an image built into it, which is going to put to the side. So we're telling it that the font family is FA solid. The glyph is this, so you got to go look up the glyph just like you would if you're going to use on a browser. You can do that on like the Font Awesome pages, places like that, and be able to pull that in. And then we can set the color for it as well that we want that image to be. That's the font image source is going to use to actually render that. So it's going to take this, it's going to render it into a raster for the image source so that it can be displayed on the screen. Okay, the other piece we want to take a look at is these are all buttons doing something useful, right? So like dialing. So if we actually come in here, we have a bunch of commands set up, and you can see up here, they're all off to something. So if you look at these, they're using the dialer service, which is built into Maui as well. I'll take it back. it is, but this is a simplified one here. Oops, there we go. It's using the phone dialer, so I have it wrapped up because it checks to make sure it's supported. If it's not, then it doesn't do anything. If it is, then it tries to open the phone dialer up in it. And then these other ones are all using the browser, the iBrowser, the same one we use to open the Learn More info to actually open things up. And so for email, it's just doing a mail to, and then the actual URLs for all the others on here. The nice thing is that these work nice. So like the YouTube one, if you have the YouTube app intercepts this. So this will actually open in the YouTube app. I think Twitter and a couple of these other ones will work the same way. But you can see if we run this back on the device, and if we go to the contact us page, tap the phone number, it's going to open up. It's ready to go. It doesn't actually dial it, but it's the dialer is open with the number in, ready for you to go on it. Same thing is going to happen with the emails and the website and all these other pieces. They're going to open up all in the places that you would expect them to. The Instagram app's going to open up for that to pull the profile up and etc. So back to that. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at a few more changes that we can do to the shell here. I'm going to add some more pieces to it here. Let me jump to step 4. All this is going to be the same, but we've added a few things in here. We've added some stuff to the app shell. We're going to add another section to this. And so now, nice thing is you can mix on these shell pieces. You can mix stuff together. So here's a file item. So this is going to give us an item that would go to is going to be a page. But this page, this is going to be made up, instead of just a shell content, it's going to be made up of tabs for these different pages on here and everything. So it's going to show a couple pieces on this. Let's run this. Just a second. It's got a new page to compile in. It's really building. Sometimes it builds faster than other times. Okay, it's deploying. Yeah, so there's some significant changes to this one, so it took a little bit more to actually get the deployment. There we go. Just launched and running. So we have the same app, same details on here, but now we have this tools item down here. And if we click on that, we see that when that opens up, we actually are given 2 pages here at the bottom. There are tabs, and those tabs have some pieces on it, some calculators here. So we tap in up here, we put some values in, put some realistic values in. We're going to see some calculations are happening. We see this number here changed as I am entering and changing numbers on here. It's happening right away on it. If I can put some little more information in here, then there's some other calculations happening over here as well. All tell me about it. So all these calculations, these are all happening as part of the property notification on MVVM. So if we look at this SAC calculator page, which is the one we were on, and take a look at it, It's got all of our properties set up. There's nothing here on, here we go. There's nothing here on any of these entries that are telling us to do anything. The only thing I have going on is there's a toolkit behavior I'm using, the select all text. What this does is on the mobile device, it's not as big a deal, but on desktop and stuff, if you don't do that, you click in a field, you start typing, you're not going to overwrite what's there, but typically when you click in, you want to change the whole value, or especially tabbing through it. So this is going to select all the text on it. It's an easy way of adding functionality without having to write a bunch of code for everything. You just throw this behavior on everything you want it to happen on. But other than that, there's nothing happening here to when we enter. It's just binding to the gas consumed, time in minutes, depth in feet. And if we come down here, the consumption value, it's just binding to that value. It's not, doing anything special there, but it's getting changed. And so if we look at the SAT calculator view model, we're doing a few things here. We have the observable property like we did before. So this is turning this into a full-fledged property, auto property style with the notification on it. But some other pieces that we get is this notify property changed for. Notify property change for. And what we can do with that is we can use it to tell it that whenever this changes, it should also let whatever's listening know that the surface air consumption and the respiratory minute volume values both changed as well. And we can see that those are calculated values that look at the values here, and then they do some actual math based on if there's other values there. So whenever these change, it's letting it know that, hey, those things change. And these two here, these actually only affect this value. And so they're only telling it that one changed. So it's not going to change this every time we enter things because it's not affecting it. But because the pieces in there, all that stuff's done for us. So as soon as the value on this changes, it's going to let it know that, hey, this respiratory minute volume field changed. So go get the value again, which is going to rerun the math on it and update our screen. So let's see. One other thing I want to do. So let's take a look at this again real quick. Is when we're on the screen and we enter some values in here, I want to be able to this 0 that's down here. The 0 isn't really accurate because I haven't entered enough information. Once I enter a value here, now it's got an actual value in it. But when I go to nothing here, it says 0. I don't want a 0 to show up there. I don't want it to think that, oh, you're using no error a minute. I mean, kind of obvious you're not, but I don't want to show that. I want to do a little bit of other stuff. So we can do that without having to write extra code here to make this is a double, right? We don't want to make that a string and have to put out the string we want and everything. But we can do it all in the page here. And we can do it using something that's called a value converter. So I have this value converter I've created. Let's go take a look at it. 0 is unknown display converter. So what it's going to do is it's going to look at the value coming in, which is an object. So it's going to look at it, and it's going to see if it's a double and it's greater than 0, or a decimal greater than 0, or an int greater than 0, or long greater than 0. In those cases, it's going to return the string value for it. So if it's a number value and greater than 0, it's going to return that. Otherwise, it's going to return a question mark. And this convert back is not implemented because this is a read-only field, so we don't have to worry about the value being set from the UI back. That's what it would run through for this. So we have this converter, and we want to use this converter to make the changes to the UI. So we can do that. We've given it a key. It happens to be the same, but it could be something different. This is just how we're going to recognize this in code. And then we're going to come down to the one here. And converter. There's going to be a static resource and the resource name. I think I did all it right. Find out here in a second. We're going to run that. And if we go back to the tools page here, we go to this, we see we have a question mark there instead of a value. And as I enter things in to it here, oops. Well, it's going to be, let's make that 660. There we go. And I enter a value in, and now, we actually have the math happening on it and everything is showing a real value and everything. So if we put that back to 0, it's setting it back. Now what's happening is because of the value conversion, because this is a text input and it's a numeric on the backside and not nullable, when we clear this out, it hasn't actually changed that value. So it's still 4. We backspace it. It's still a 4 behind the scenes. That's why this doesn't go to question mark there. But we could make it nullable and do things to support that. Just didn't do it in the demo here. Okay. All right. That, let's see. That is what I had going on for our demo here. You can find some resources. This one's not out there yet. I need to put this out on GitHub, but you can find info there. You can reach us alienarc.com if you're looking for some help doing Maui work, either building Maui stuff, transitioning Xamarin to Maui, doing Blazor, any of that kind of stuff. That's what we do. Consulting, contracting, those things. So also do training work as well. But you can reach me there. You can reach me at Dwayne Newman pretty much everywhere, or DwayneNewman.net. And other than that, thank you very much. Take any questions if there's some out there.
Cool. All right. Any questions? Yes, Chris.
Is there a roadmap for Linux support for Maui? I have an application I want to port to Linux for the other Meetup meets here, but I just looked up and doesn't seem like there's anything there currently for it.
So, not sure if you heard that, Dwayne, but basically the question was, what's the roadmap for Linux support?
So, I had a slide that had Linux on it. I took it off. Development-wise, I think there's potentially some possibility there using VS Code, but I don't think anything official. Running-wise, there is a community-driven effort to create a Linux head platform for it, but it requires creating, that layer that we were looking at earlier and everything. You're right. So it requires. Well, thought I was going to it here. Hold on. There we go. It requires creating this layer to do all that work and everything, and that doesn't exist right now, right? So they've got to do that. I think the effort was focused around GTK Sharp for displaying and everything. So there's potential there, but there's nothing official being done on it. Although it is, I think the effort to kind of do it, I think was Seth Juarez, I think. So, people involved in things and stuff actively on it, but I don't think it's an official effort right now. Their bigger effort is making sure that any little gaps and stuff for doing, especially for doing mobile, Android and iOS is sealed, and then macOS and Windows is their secondary focus from what I've seen and everything on it. So Tizen support's being done by the Tizen group, and I don't think there's not really much crossover there for the Linux stuff. I don't think, other than the root of it. So I don't have a good answer for you on that, other than there's people playing with it and would like to do it, but it's definitely not a thing right now.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions? Well, awesome. Well, Dwayne, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. And then, like I said, so next month we'll have a talk about communication. That will be January. I don't remember. Whatever the third week of. So 16th. No, it's not January 6th.
I was gonna say that'd be a bad week to have it.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's. I'm sitting here like, no, not during Code Bash. It's the 23rd. So January 23rd. So not our normal third Thursday, because I'll be at Code Bash. And then, like I said before, some of us will be going over to Brick House. Why can I not say that correctly?
I do the same thing.
So definitely, everyone's more than welcome to join. And again, Dwayne, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here. Wish I was there and could go hang out with you guys a little longer.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to get you out here sometime again.
Yep, that'd be great. Sounds good. All right. Thanks, everybody.